Breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report. Presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Robbie Rosenhaus, does a great job getting us on the air, getting us all of our clips. And Robbie, big game coming up this Sunday at Lambeau Field. The Vikings 4-6 up against it, going against the 6-3-1 Packers. Packers have lost their last two home games. The Vikings have won the last 2 years in Lambeau Field, but this game really shapes up as crucial for the Vikings, obviously in their predicament right now, probably needing at least 6 wins in the last 7 games to get to 10 wins, and that might not be good enough this year in a tough NFC. But certainly a big game. The border battle with the Packers always is big, and this one shapes up just as big as any for the Vikings, and especially for young J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And especially with the up and down nature of the Packers this year, you expect them, like you said, with a couple of losses at Lambeau, to produce a big effort against a division rival, especially with a chance to kind of bury the Vikings with the way that the Vikings have played a lot of this last month, save the Lions game. I mean, you have some winnable games at home that you can't close the deal. And now you go to Green Bay with a must win. I mean, let's call it what it is. And the quarterback is in a position where it's basically fight or flight. And they're going to use this game to kind of decide which of two paths they're going on the rest of this season, Jeff. I think this is a real kind of flashpoint game for the rest of the year. They're either going to launch a campaign where they're going to try and put this thing together and launch a wild card, or maybe even a unlikely division run, or it's going to be about the development of McCarthy and trying to string together as many wins as possible. That's what
certainly there are a lot of factors at play this week, and we know the Packers are going to be looking to avenge the Vikings sweep last year, which was the first time in the series since 2020 or 2019 since anybody has swept the other team. The 4 previous years, the two teams split the games, and the Vikings got the sweep last year, won in a thriller at Lambeau in week 4 last year, 31-29. That was the game the Vikings took a 28-0 lead and then had to hang on for their lives at the end as Jordan Love launched a furious comeback in the second half. And then the rematch in week 17, Sam Darnold threw for 377. The Vikings receiving corps lit up the Packers, and the Vikings got a big 27-25 win. But in that game, they had a 27-10 lead, and the Packers came back within 2 points at the end. So both games were close last year. I expect a similar close game this year if the Vikings can stop turning the ball over, if they can at least be even in the turnover ratio, which they were last year in game 2 against the Packers. They won the turnover ratio game 1 in Lambeau. And if McCarthy can become more accurate, and if he doesn't throw 2 picks, and also that they don't have any killer mistakes, such as on the kickoff cover unit when 3 guys ran out of their lanes, and that basically cost them the game against the Bears. Let's go, Robbie, to some of our audio highlights. And we're going to start with the Packers winning at the Giants last week, 27-20. And here was a big touchdown pass from Jordan Love to Christian Watson in the game.
Love on a high snap. Floats it. Watson up top. It is caught. Touchdown Packers. Green Bay's got the lead.
That was a terrific catch by Watson, who was hurt earlier this year, and he's back now. They're hoping Jaden Reed, one of their best receivers, may be able to make it back at some point, perhaps not this week. Josh Jacobs is a guy who got hurt in that Giants game, but he was back practicing on a limited basis this week. And the good news for the Vikings, Jonathan Grenard, who missed the Bears game, and the Vikings missed him, obviously one of their best defensive players, and he was back practicing on a limited basis this week, so that's a good sign potentially. Ryan Kelly is expected to return after missing 7 games with his concussion symptoms. And the starting center, it would be the first time the Vikings have their starting offensive line intact for a game this year. So those are positives for the Vikings going into this game. But a couple other big plays in this game. Micah Parsons, he's a guy that the Cowboys unloaded to Green Bay, much to the chagrin of the NFC North teams. Parsons has 8 sacks this season, had 1.5 sacks last week in the Meadowlands. He is a force to be reckoned with, an all-pro defensive end linebacker, outside linebacker type. And here was a play last week where he sealed the deal for the Packers.
They're playing intermediate right now. Here's Winston. Loading up, gotta hurry, hit from behind. Ball is out. And this game is over.
And that was Micah Parsons forced that fumble on Jameis Winston. No Jackson Dart in that game for the Giants. That helped Green Bay, certainly. Going back a couple of weeks, the Packers have lost 2 straight home games, as I mentioned, to Carolina and Philadelphia. So they haven't been great at home recently. The Vikings are better on the road this year, 3-2 on the road, and only 1-4, a dismal 1-4 at home. Going back a couple weeks, the Eagles went into Lambeau and beat the Packers. A defensive battle, 10-7 in that game. And here was the winning play, a touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith.
Shoulder pump fake, end zone. It is caught for the touchdown, Devontae Smith.
And we're going to go back to last year, to that Week 4 thriller in Lambeau. And here was a touchdown pass, Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson. It was an amazing play. We can't see it with our audio highlight, but Jefferson just kind of was nonchalant in the corner of the end zone. All of a sudden, the ball was on him. Just a phenomenal throw by Darnold.
Darnold 9-12. Blocked by Jones to the end zone. And caught.
And that was a big play in that game for the Vikings. Gave them a 21-0 lead in the second quarter, went up 28-0. As I said, then they had to hang on for dear life as Jordan Love led a big rally. He had 271 passing yards and 3 touchdowns in the second half alone. But in that game, he threw 3 picks. And the Vikings are going to hope to put pressure on him, force him to make some mistakes, and we'll see how that turns out. So
he also was not healthy, Jeff, in that game at Lambeau, if you remember.
You're right. Yeah.
And they were kind of questionable about whether or not they were going to play him that week. They rushed him back from injury. He had missed the week before, and he wanted to get back for that Viking game, and he was basically playing on one leg. He was unable to move at all, and it was a miracle that they even came back in that game, if you remember.
Yeah, it definitely was. But even in the second game, late in the season, week 17, he
was terrible. He was terrible.
They really controlled Jordan Love in that game.
Yeah,
and
it was terrible.
Under 200 yards passing, and Darnold threw for 377 in that game.
Great.
So
great. Yep.
The Vikings can play with this team. They can hang with the Packers if they eliminate the big mistakes by McCarthy, by the kicking units, by Miles Price, no fumbles. The running backs hang on to the ball. The receivers, no drops. After 6 drops last week, certainly contributed to McCarthy's problems. Justin Jefferson, one of the highest paid receivers in the league, one of the best receivers in the league. He can't be dropping balls. Jordan Addison had 2 big drops. TJ Hawkinson, one of the highest paid tight ends in the league, had a big drop. They have got to catch the ball, and that's going to be a key factor in this game.
The Packers have their own issues with drops. I watched a lot of that Packers-Giants game last week. I think Romeo Doubs had a hat trick. He had at least 3 drops in that game. So he's a guy who, yes, can make explosive big plays, but it just seems like the Packers have issues with dropsies. Jaden Reed, before he went out last year, had issues with drops, and he's supremely talented. So both sides here with a ton of drop issues as we head into the border battle version 1 this season.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Mistakes always go a long way towards determining who wins games, and penalties are always going to be a key. And we know the Vikings were better penalty-wise last week, only 2 for 15 yards after that disastrous Baltimore game with the 8 false starts. And amazingly, they had no false starts in Detroit. So maybe when they go to Green Bay and they go back to the silent count, maybe they're better off doing that. But let's hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication, a dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering, to building upon prior knowledge year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2026 GMC Sierra 1500 crew cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $4,692. See your local GMC dealer today. Only on 5.3-liter V8 engine for purchase allowance. Length of contract limited, must finance with GM Financial. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/1/25. Kevin O'Connell, he's been pulling his hair out about his young quarterback. We know that, and trying to get him working on his mechanics and all the things they're talking about. And O'Connell knows that Micah Parsons is lying in wait this week. He talked about McCarthy, talked about Micah Parsons, and facing the Packers.
In the building today, we'll hit the practice field and be outside all 3 days this week, kind of getting ready for the surface, ready for the weather, the elements, things like that. NFC North going to Lambeau, always a very, very important game for the Minnesota Vikings, and it is absolutely one this week. And I know our guys are excited to get to work on the field this week, and we'll be ready to roll when we head to Lambeau.
Kevin,
just one update. Jonathan Grenard will work off to the side today, and we'll update you guys on kind of where he's at moving into tomorrow and Friday, and then Ryan Kelly should be a full participant.
Okay, just on Michael Parsons, how have you seen them use him from just different positions and different types of ways that they put him up front?
Yeah, he's lining up everywhere. On first and second down, he'll be on both sides. He'll move around sometimes within a drive, so you really can't have like an exact beat on where he's going to be. And really the important part of that is, whatever side he lines up on, Rashawn Gary lines up on the other side.
Rashawn Gary has 7.5 sacks. Micah Parsons, 8 sacks. A big challenge for the Vikings offensive line this week, taking on that Packers defense. The Packers defense has been pretty good this year. And I mentioned they held the Eagles to 10 points. They have the 6th ranked defense in the NFL. Vikings are 10th ranked. So you would think maybe it's more of a defensive battle, but that hasn't really been the case for these two teams when they get together. And we'll see how it plays out. Aaron Jones, always excited to go back to Lambeau, face his former team. He had a big game in the first meeting last year, 139 combined yards rushing and receiving at Lambeau, and then 77 yards he was held to in the second game. And he talked this week about returning to Lambeau again and playing against that Packers defense.
Definitely excited to go back. Last time I was there was welcomed with much love, and that's always appreciated. So anytime I get to go back, it feels like a full circle moment, and just to take time to realize the path that I've been on, this journey, and all that it's taken and what more it's going to take.
You guys characterize this week as a must-win week for you guys?
I feel like every week is a must-win now. So I mean, you'll get that urgency from me and spreading that around to the guys. But as far as pressing, I feel like we don't need to necessarily press anymore, because that's when guys start to press, they feel like they got to do more than their job, and everybody just has to do their job.
I think that Packers secondary can be had. The corners, that is not the strength of their team. If the offensive line can protect, give McCarthy time to throw, and if he can be more accurate, they can do some damage, as they did in that second game last year when Darnold had that big game. But JJ's got to be more accurate. Talking about some of the keys, as we said, starts with McCarthy. for me, catching the ball. We already talked about turning around the turnover problem. The Vikings have to get back to their 2024 version when they were one of the best turnover teams in the league, led the league in takeaways. This year, they're dismal, only 9 takeaways, which is the 6th fewest, and their turnover ratio -9, 18 giveaways, second most, at -9, second worst. The Packers are +1 this year. In the 2 games I mentioned last year, the Vikings ended up +1 in the first game, even the second game. Got to get to that point, which hasn't been the case lately. McCarthy just can't make the bad throws he did for the picks last week. Stopping the big mistakes, false starts, kickoff coverage, run the ball, as we talked about, is going to be a key to take the pressure off McCarthy, protect McCarthy. We know that's always important. Stopping the run. We'll see if Josh Jacobs plays. He was back at practice limited this week, even though it looked like he had a more serious injury in that Giant game. But he looks like he's ready to go. But the Packers' offensive line has been banged up like the Vikings have been. Elgin Jenkins, their Pro Bowl center guard, he's out. He's on an injured reserve, and that weakens their group definitely. Pressuring Jordan Love's going to be a key. Vikings had 3 sacks in the second game last year, 1.5 by Blake Cashman. So look for some blitzing, even though Jordan Love has been, Robbie, one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year against the blitz. He's got a 119 rating, 9 touchdowns, and 1 pick against the blitz.
But what the Vikings have to do is they have to go back and watch that Eagle defense. And I understand they don't have the same personnel that the Eagle defense does, but Love was completely confused by the Eagle defense this year and the Browns defense this year. He did not make a lot of plays. Both defensive lines there were in his face. And we saw how much Flores loved the blitz last week. We will see how much he's going to love it this week, because he pounded Hurts with the blitz a few weeks ago in US Bank Stadium. And now we take the defense on the road, and we'll see how much he's going to unleash it. As you said, Love very good against the blitz. So very intriguing strategic battle there between defensive coordinator and quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. And it didn't work out real well blitzing Jalen Hurts, by the way, in that game. So we'll see. And if he's got Grenard, that's a big help, obviously, on defense. And Dallas Turner coming off his best game, I think maybe they can do some damage against that Packer offensive line, force Love into some mistakes. We'll see how that plays out. As I mentioned before, Ryan Kelly appears on track to return, and Brian O'Neill, the Vikings' excellent offensive tackle, he's had some ups and downs this year with that knee, but he talked about the possibility, the hope that they have their full offensive line back, and talked about Micah Parsons.
Pretty unmatched in terms of his get off, his ability to bend, his ability to accelerate. He can do it from both sides. He can beat you with the different moves. So, he's one of the best there is, and we're going to have a big challenge, and got to have a good plan in place and a good week of practice to get ready for it.
How eager are you guys, excited are you guys? I mean, Walter did a great job filling in. Blake did a great job filling in, but finally this is the 5-man line that you guys were signing up for at the beginning of this year.
Yeah. Is this the first one?
I think it is. Yeah, because Christian and then Donovan. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty sure it is.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's make it happen then. Yeah. That's good. It's that's part of the NFL, right? These guys are going to be banged up throughout the year, so it'll be good to have the boys back together, and hopefully it yields some good results for us.
Yep. Yes, Brian, you do have your full offensive line this week if Ryan Kelly starts, and that is a good possibility. We'll see how that plays out, and we'll see if Ryan Kelly's rusty after missing 7 games. So again, some of those keys to this game, containing a really good receiving core, but they do drop the ball, as you said, Robbie, and they're also missing Tucker Kraft, who was off to a tremendous start, their tight end, before he got hurt and is out for the season now, and that's definitely weakened their passing attack. So we talk about the defense, Isaiah Rodgers, and he knows how good Jordan Love and his receiving core can be.
Just understand that he can extend those plays, and we got to be ready to plaster with receivers. We got a great receiver core over there, and he's going to make any throw. He can make throws from the other hash. He can make it to the boundary, down the field, across the field. So he can make every pass, so you got to be ready.
Before we go to hear from the Packers side, hear from the coach and the quarterback, and Robbie and I are going to make our prediction and go around the NFL, let's hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
And the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2026 GMC Sierra 1500 Elevation Crew Cab models with a Turbo Max engine. That's an average finance savings of $49.49. Current eligible GMC owners combine it with $1,350 engine credit plus $1,750 bonus cash and $3,500 GMC loyalty cash to get over $11,500 in total value. That's 20% below MSRP. See your local GMC dealer today. Based on MSRP of $55,370. Must be a current owner of a 2011 model year or newer Buick or GMC vehicle, or a current lessee of a 2020 model year or newer Buick or GMC vehicle through GM Financial for at least 30 days prior to new vehicle sale. Length of contract limited. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on a bank rate of 5.22%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/1/25.
Matt LaFleur had some interesting observations about J.J. McCarthy.
He's got all the arm talent in the world. I just see a young quarterback. He's extremely athletic. They do a great job with him. I think Kevin is as good as anybody at putting his quarterbacks in position to be successful. He's obviously got some weapons around him when you're talking about guys like Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. Naylor does a great job. Both their backs do a heck of a job. You guys know how I feel about Aaron Jones, but Jordan Mason as well. So he's got plenty of talent around him. I just think he's a young developing quarterback, and I think it's a matter of time for him. I just hope the time's not this week.
The Vikings hope the time is this week as they head to Lambeau Field for that big game on Sunday. Jordan Love also talked this week about facing the Vikings defense and about his offense kind of coming together too.
Groove in all phases and go out there and make plays.
Matt said earlier that Minnesota's defense is really good at forcing fumbles, applying pressure to the quarterback. What challenges do you think that Minnesota will present this Sunday?
Yeah, I always think it just starts with the different looks they present, pre-snap and obviously post-snap with the different pressures they bring. And it's one of those defenses that I think they're always applying pressure to the offense, and you got to be able to respond. And like you said, take care of the ball. I think they do a good job hunting the ball. And I think some of just the confusion they try and create and the chaos they try and create, kind of forces quarterbacks to make some bad decisions sometimes and get sped up with some of the pressure. So obviously, you just got to be smart with the ball, understand kind of what the different pressures they're bringing, the different looks I'm seeing, and knowing where to go with the ball and finding completions.
Okay, Robbie, let's pick this game, and I'll let you go first this week. I think I went first last week. It didn't turn out too good.
No, it didn't, and I picked the Vikings to win the last 2 weeks, so I'm going to change it up this week and pick them to lose. That way, they'll come out and hopefully win the game. I'll say 30-27 Packers, even though I said on Monday that I think it's going to be low scoring. As you said, these games tend to be higher scoring over history, and it seems like McCarthy is really, really just kind of due for a bounce back. I truly believe that, especially with a healthy offensive line. So I think they'll put up points, but I think Jordan Love's due for a big game too, and he's kind of been waiting in the weeds there. So I'll go 30-27 Packers in a close shave loss for the Vikings, which means we're going to celebrate on Monday's episode with a victory.
Well, we'll hope that you're right, and I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you, looking at this game. I need to see the Vikings play more mistake-free than they have the last 2 weeks. I need to see them play as they did in Detroit, which is certainly possible with the talent level of this team. And for McCarthy to play as he did in Detroit, which was better than he has the last 2 weeks. But until I see it, the team, they just make too many mistakes. And the kickoff coverage was just symptomatic of what's happened this year with turnovers, with penalties, and just too many mistakes, and the young quarterback having issues. And even Carson Wentz, when he was in there, was inconsistent. The Packers, I think, can be had, and the Vikings aren't going to be fearful of going to Lambeau Field because they've won the last 2 years there. So I expect a close game. I expect the Vikings to play better than they did against the Bears, but I think the Packers are a better team than the Bears. And I'm going to pick Green Bay 27-24. So like you, I've got a 3-point win for the Packers. And that's close enough that it could go either way. We'll see how it shakes out, and we're going to be back and break it down on Monday on our show. And next week, as a program note, will be instead of Thursday, which is Thanksgiving, we'll have our preview of the Seattle game against the Vikings on Wednesday, as far as our live show. And of course, we stream 24/7 on YouTube. So going around the NFL, a couple big games this week. Always big games in the division. Giants are at Detroit. Sounds like Jackson Dart may be back, which helps the Giants. Detroit.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that if I was the Giants. You wouldn't bring back Dart this week, would you?
Well, he's apparently back at practice. So
I'm
we'll
just
see.
saying, like from a long-term standpoint, like
Yeah.
you have an interim coach in there. I understand he's trying to get the job and everything, but the long-term future of your franchise is tied to that quarterback. I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Well, we'll see. And the Giants have some talented players on that defense, and they could give Jared Goff some trouble with guys like Burns and Thibodeau and Abdul Carter. So I'm not saying it's a cakewalk for Detroit, but I think Detroit wins at home. I think Chicago, the Bears have the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers is questionable with a fracture in his left non-throwing wrist. But I think Aaron will want to play against the Bears. He's had some pretty good success against them over the years. I still think Chicago wins this game, but I still say the Bears, then they hit the gauntlet. They got the Packers twice, Detroit, they're at San Francisco, they got at Philadelphia. I think the Bears are going to miss the playoffs at 9-8. But I think they get their 8th win this week. And then some other big games. Indianapolis at Kansas City, huge game for the Chiefs, who are 5-5. The Colts come in 8-2. I expect Patrick Mahomes to find a way to get this win, get the Chiefs back into playoff contention. Tampa Bay is at the Rams. I think the Rams are the best team in the league right now. Matthew Stafford's playing great football, and I like the Rams in that game. And so, as I said, we'll be back on Monday to break it all down, break down the weekend activities and the Vikings at the Packers in the border battle. Border battle 1 for this year, and then they'll meet again later in the season. And this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you by every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. This is Jeff Diamond with Robbie Rosenhaus, and we will talk to you on Monday and break down Vikings Packers.